All right, we shall begin. I don't want to waste your time because you got here on time to do with that. So since I started everything with pictures, I thought today I would start with a couple of pictures of my pets. I am not allowed to have live pets. Well, I could have like a gold, sure, because I have a carpet department and the management will only have pets. So I never actually outgrew my dinosaur phase. So I have about a couple dozen plastic dinosaurs all around the house. This is my dining room window, and this is a Tyrannosaurus eating Paleo Barbie, who has the nerve to try to say that they know more about dinosaurs than I do. So that's one. And then I have another Tyrannosaurus. This guy out. And this is Herman. A little hard to see Herman here, but Herman guards my window. That's where I work. This is in my living room. This is where my work area is to do. And that's one of the caricatures that could be called the Sphinx. And so he also guards the Sphinx to make sure the Sphinx doesn't get out of line with things. They're very effective. I've had no problems in no invasions, no anything. They keep me very safe, which is very nice. So thank you, dinosaurs. Thank you to do. So we're gonna do a lot of testing stuff today. And I know it's probably not gonna be the most interesting stuff in the world, but it's necessary. We have to go through this because we have to have a good idea of what's out in front of us. So let me go to SAT versus ACT. About this. Now, again, the slides are from the Project 440. I just didn't clear them or change them because I didn't see the need to do that. Project 440 is a community-based organization in Philadelphia. And we assist students who are looking to, in some way, continue their music in college. Not necessarily as majors, but to just have something to do with it. Maybe minoring, maybe playing an ensemble, maybe using it for the community. So this is where they come from. So ACT versus SAT, both acceptable, almost everywhere. It's very interesting. Every school in the United States will accept the SAT unless they just don't accept testing at all, and there are some. There's only one school in the entire country that doesn't accept the ACT, and it's just like, really? It's the Curtis Institute of Music. Now, why would anyone even want to send test scores to Curtis? And you get into Curtis, you play the violin, you play it well, there you go. That's how Curtis works to do, and that's how it should work to do. When I'm with my Project 440 students, we have Curtis students that come in, and it's just like, wow, it's like you really did this. It's a great place. It's a great place. I also tell them, if you find a school of music that does not have an audition to be admitted, how good could that be? I mean, I play the radio, I would get in, right? So ACT versus SAT, is it Coke versus Pepsi? Coke, myself, Coke, like Coke. Or is it something more? Are these guys really different from one another? So let's see this. So each one has 4 separate sections. The ACT sections are truly separate, whereas the SAT has 2 sections that you get twice. So with the ACT, you get reading, which is comprehensive. You get larger passages, no longer on the SAT. So you get the larger passages, you get probably about 5 or 6, 40 questions, 35 minutes in that. English, which is fixing sentences, better name for it to do. 75 questions in 45 minutes, yikes. Math, 40 questions, 35 minutes. And math is 60 questions, 60 minutes. And then scientific reasoning, which is really a reading test. It's not really science, it's reading science, it's understanding science. You won't be asked to do any equations, you won't be asked to give any formulas. It's about, okay, here's an experiment, read this, tell me what's gonna happen next. Or here are several charts and graphs. If the pressure rises, what happens to the temperature? PV equals nRT. Boyle's law. You have to excuse me. I went to high school. I think I was in 9th grade. I think DNA had been discovered like 5 years before that. So this was a different kind of science with that. So this is what we end up with. There is an optional essay section. Should you do it if you take the ACT? Well, there are 6 colleges in the entire country that use it. 6. One of them is the U.S. Military Academy, so you don't have a choice with them. The other are, not meaning to be impolite, fairly obscure, small schools scattered mostly in the South. I think it would be unlikely if anybody would apply to any, well, maybe the Army, of course, that would be fine. But you do not do the essay to impress a college. They're not even going to look at it. If it's not required, they're not going to look at it. So you're fine not doing it. There's no extra credits. Come on in. Thank you. Fact of the matter is, the essay will cost you extra if you want to do it. There's another reason not to do it. No. The SAT got rid of its essay back in 2018 because the colleges were saying, you know what? We already have an essay to read, or 2, or 5, so they didn't really need to read another essay. So the SAT also has 4 sections, but there's 2 readings and 2 maths. Oh, excuse me, evidence-based reading. Oh, and grammar is combined with the reading now, which didn't used to be the case. There used to be a separate section on the SAT for the grammar part. So now you could get 3 or 4 reading questions and then 2 or 3 grammar questions, and will mix up and mix around. And both of the math sections allow a student to use the calculator. There was a section on the old SAT where a calculator use was not permitted. So you would do 25 problems without using a calculator to do. So both the same in terms of the number of sections. Now the new SAT, the digital SAT, is 2 hours and 14 minutes as opposed to 2 hours and 55 minutes with the ACT. So each subject area gets completed before you move on to the next area. Now that seems like pretty obvious, right? Like, but on the old SAT, there used to be 10 sections. 10 sections. The first 6 were 25 minutes long. The next 3 were 20 minutes long. And the last one was 15 minutes long. So you might do 20 minutes of reading, followed by 20 minutes of math, followed by 20 more minutes of reading, followed by, you were jumping around. And especially if you take a while to get warmed up to a task, it's done. You're finished and you have to move on to the next one to do. So 10 sections of this test. Oh my God, oh my God. So to say this probably doesn't mean as much today, but it certainly meant a lot. So each subject area is completed before you move on. In the ACT, the longest section is math. It's 60 minutes, 2 hours and 55 minutes altogether, 40 minutes for the essay. In the SAT digital, 1 reading and 1 math, 10-minute break, and then the second reading and the second math. The ACT also has a 10-minute break, but you do the English and the math first. So it's 105 minutes, then break, and then 70 minutes afterwards. So it's an easier stretch for the ACT. It's more in the beginning with the ACT. Okay, 2 hours and 14 minutes. So the ACT is scored really differently from the SAT. it goes from 1 to 36. You can actually get a 1 on the ACT. Oh my God. I've never seen, 8 is the lowest score I've ever seen. But wow, you can get a 1. Like the SAT, you get 400 points just for sitting down. You don't get a 0 or a 1. You don't have to spell your name correctly because it's already in the computer. That's a myth to do. So you have to really be cognizant here. The 1 to 36 scale is this big, and the 400 to 1600 scale is this big. So here's a scenario, right? My twin sister and I go to the same high school. I took the ACT, she took the SAT. She goes into her counselor and says, oh my God, I did great. I got a 1350 on the SAT. Okay, I follow her in, and I'm a little self-conscious here, because I come into my counselor and I go, I got a 31 on the ACT. Sounds terrible. 31 compared to 1350. But the ACT people, the College Board, and the NCAA put their heads together. Their psychometricians developed something called a concordance. So we have the data that tells us what SAT score matches what ACT score. So that 31 is anything from a 1380 to a 1420. I win. So it does really sound like you're not doing great on the ACT because the number is as low as it is. So just be careful of the proportions here with all of that to do. The essay, if you write it, don't write it. If you write it, is separately scored. It doesn't affect the composite score. With the ACT, you get 5 scores. Each section gets its own score, and the composite, which is an average. So 30, 30, 30, 30, and my composite is a 30. The SAT, you get 3 scores. You get the reading, you get the math, and then the combined score with that. So just be careful with the numbers. OMG. $60 to take the SAT, 68 take the ACT, and an extra $25 if you do the essay. I haven't updated the 24, 25, but I'm sure it's not less the same. Both the ACT and the SAT will allow you to send 4 scores, up to 4 scores, to any college or scholarship program that you choose. Now you have to do this without knowing what your score is going to be. Because once the test is finished and 9 days have passed, then those freebies are not active anymore. And once 9 days have passed, have you received your scores? No. No. Both agencies have been much better at getting the scores back to students, running now about 2 to 3 weeks, but definitely not within 9 days. So here's the thing. If you're a really good test taker and you're pretty sure you're going to do well, and you have some colleges on your list that are not impossible to get into, maybe you use these. But be careful here, because you don't get a mulligan. You can't recall these. Like you can't say to Northwestern, oh, I didn't mean that. That's a black mark against you. You can't. Now, can you take the test again and do better? Of course. But I always advise my students, hold on to your scores. Yes, it may cost you a little bit to send them later. Well, not a little bit. It's like 2 Wawa Hoagies and a classics, not shorties, to send these scores. I have better things I can do with $14 here, guys. But here's the most wonderful thing. when the pandemic hit, there's a lot of really awful things. The one good thing that happened is that students were then allowed to put their scores in the Common Application. And many colleges, Common App has 1,094 members. And nearly 500 will harvest the scores from the Common App. So you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay. Now, of course, if it's school, let's see, Penn State, oh yeah, you have to send an official score. Penn, you have to send an official. Some schools will not. Georgetown, you have to send an official score. But for the schools that don't care for that, you can just put it in your Common Application and they will harvest it. Now, of course, if you're admitted and you enroll, then you must send your test score officially. But now you're spending maybe $14 and not $84. So we'll save you a little bit of money with that. This is a big money maker for these agencies. I mean, what does it take to press a button and send a test score? It's like, please, so good racket here, guys. Good racket. Okay. Each individual ACT result is independent, but beginning in the 2022 school year, ACT now reports a super score. So the 4 highest subtests into one heightened composite. Okay? Never used to do that. I mean, up until the 2021 school year, the ACT would just report, okay, this is what you got. And then there was the composite and the other one, so maybe you did extremely well the second time in your scientific reasoning. They wouldn't super score it, you would still see. So now they take all of it, lump it all together. There's a few exceptions, of course, just like there's a few exceptions with the SAT, the super score, as it's called. So if I take the SAT and I get a 600 in math and a 700 in reading, not bad. Then I turn around 3 months later and I get a 700 in math and a 600 in reading, I have a 1,400. 700 here and 700 here, boom, to do. ACT never did that up until 2021. So now if I get a 30, 30, 20, 30, and now I take it again and I get a 30, 30, 30, 30, then my composite is 30 as opposed to 27. Which it would have been with the 20 score in it. Now, there are no subject tests anymore, but I feel compelled to leave this in here because the subject tests were euthanized back in January of 2021. They no longer exist, but there are some people who enter college a little bit older than the traditional age, and they still have subject tests on their record. Now, colleges will accept those scores if you want to send the scores. The subject tests were just exactly what they said they were. They were subject tests. So you could take one in English, you could take 2 different ones in math, you could take one in 10 different world languages, you could take biology, chemistry, or physics, you could take US history. They were, in my view, a lot better than the SAT or the ACT. And my colleagues and I in the National Association for College Admissions Counseling wrote up a proposal to College Board that said, you have a reading subject test, you have a math subject test. How about we say those are required, and then the student can choose whatever 3rd subject they want as their 3rd test. So there's your 3 hours of testing, because SAT used to be 3 hours long to do. And they were like, no, because they don't make money then. So, I mean, if I wanted to be a physician, I would do reading, math, and biology. If I wanted to go into government, I would do reading, math, and history. I mean, it just would make sense to have a choice like that to do. But the subject tests are no longer. You cannot take the tests anymore. There used to be, oh my gosh, we college counselors spent weeks trying to figure out who wanted what. Because there were some schools where they were required. There were some schools where they were recommended. And of course, when you apply to highly selective schools, nothing is recommended. Nothing is optional. You do it. You just do it. There were some that used them for placement purposes. Like if you took the French subject test and you got an 800, they were like, and you got to pass maybe the first level of French. Because maybe you don't want to take the AP French exam, I mean, you could take the AP French exam. But subject tests are kaput. They are no longer with us. AL subject tests. So here, every four-year school in the US, Canada, the UK, and Australia accepts the ACT, except our dear Curtis Institute of Music. Every school in, now, here's the thing, if you are thinking about going to school in Europe, take the SAT. European schools like numbers more than US schools do. Because in every European country of which I'm aware, there are exit exams in senior year. The French have the baccalaureate, the Germans have the abitur, Italian is the maturità, in English it's your O-level and A-level exams. So having numbers for schools in Europe makes sense, and it really will help a student. They don't really know the ACT all that well in these countries. I mean, they've heard of it and they know a little bit. It's not like they would reject it, but it really, if you're gonna go to Edinburgh, if you're gonna go to Bocconi, if you're going to any of those schools international, you really would be better off with the SAT. You'd be even better off with AP or IB. Okay, score acceptance. No subject tests. ACT never had subject tests, and there's about the SAT eliminating them. Now, this was a wonderful day back in 2018. The SAT had converted to a 2,400 point scale. I don't know if any of the non-students remember that, but the SAT in 2014 said, okay, we're gonna not just put an essay in, we're gonna make it like another 800. So now you get a 2,400 on the SAT. Imagine the poor ACT kids then. I got a 2,300. I got a 30. Think, oh my God. Dude. So that lasted 4 years. Nobody really wanted it in the college area. So it was done. That did none. We're finished. We're not going to do that anymore. But the other change they made, hey Dennis,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
How we do?
I won one and I lost one.
Wait, how could you do that?
I don't know, it was an accident.
She had to play twice because the other team had an extra pair.
Yeah.
You must be dying.
Yeah, I'm tired.
Oh, God bless you for coming. No, seriously, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's unusual. One lost one. Okay, so we're talking about SAT, ACT, and some of the differences. Well, up until 2018, the SAT used to invoke what we all called a guessing penalty, which meant that if you got an item incorrect, they took off an extra quarter of a point. So you get 4 questions wrong, it's basically like 10 to 15 points off your score. So here, example, right? 60 questions correct, 20 questions blank, you get a 600. 60 questions correct, 20 questions wrong, 550. This is no longer. There is no longer a guessing penalty. ACT never had it. Never had it. But the SAT now no longer has a guessing penalty. So that means this. You're on the math section. You get to number 9. You know it's -5 or +5. Guess. You get to number 20. And it's like, oh, Is that a high? Is that a girl? Is that a brother? You're not really sure, but you've eliminated two of them. Guess. You get to number 43. You see some letter in a foreign language that you've never seen before. Guess. Never leave an item blank in any of these tests, ever. Ever. And if you're running out of time, okay, you know, you're on your digital and digital's like 8 minutes and you have 10 minutes to go, pick your favorite letter. And if you're Hester Prynne, what letter would you pick? You pick A, right, scarlet letter, A. And if you're Cookie Monster, what letter would you pick? C is for cookie, right? If you were to just randomly pick, you would have less of a chance. If you pick 10 C's, chances are that at least 2, maybe 3 of them will be correct to do. So never leave anything blank on either of these tests. We're gonna give you that opportunity. Let's take it. Let's take it. These two guys hate each other. This is a Coke-Pepsi relationship. It really is. But they made an agreement decades ago that they would never have their tests on the same day, ever. In June and in December, they're only a week apart. But for the most part, they're not gonna really run into one another very much at all to do. The SAT has an August date, the ACT has a July date, so you can do either one in the summer. Good luck finding a place to take it in the summer. Especially the July ACT, because the high schools are like, well, we're not gonna for this. So what to do. But both the SAT and the ACT also provide what is called school day testing. So that all the members of the junior class take either of those tests on that day, during the school day. All the Philadelphia high schools offer that, well, not all of them, but most of them will offer that to do. So now we have questions about this. Right? This is the other thing that came up. We didn't have to worry about this. There were some schools that were test optional way back when, I mean, as early as the 1960s. They were not in the majority. There were a couple tests, a couple schools that were test free. But now with test optional, we really have to be careful with this. You know, what is test blind versus test optional, and then we'll get into this. So let me get out of here. Exit. Let me move out of here. Let me see. Right. So you'll get this. If I have your email, you will get this. But here are the schools that have returned to or never stopped requiring testing. Okay, there's not many. You know, you would think in the news, it's like, oh my God, everybody's gonna go back to that. No. I mean, there are some systems like all public supported colleges, 4 years in Florida, all campus of University of Tennessee state system. Georgia used to be all public colleges, now it's only 3 to do. And then you have schools like Caltech and Purdue, which are heavy science places. And even when they were allegedly test optional, they really weren't, because everybody sent their test scores. Okay? Even right? Now Cornell, Stanford, and Hopkins are going next year, right? So for the students applying next year, they will have to take tests. North Carolina has this odd, you know, if you have a 2.8, you don't have to send test scores. Okay. Okay, and then a couple other schools will be required bringing back in Georgia to do it. There's not that many. There's really not that many. And what you really have to look at here is this. And you'll get a copy of this. And so let me just scroll down here a little bit and show you. Because now there's not just 2 sets of numbers to look at. Now there's 3. Okay, so let's take, well, a school that we know better. We know American. People know American University. So the mid 50% SAT, 1300 to 1440. That means that 25% are below 1300 and 25% are above 1440. These numbers are for students that are actually enrolled at the school. These are not the students that applied. These are not the students that were accepted. These are the students that are actually at American University. So this is I think a much more accurate number for this. Then the ACT, 29 to 32, that's pretty much the same spread. Right? So it's not really out of line. But look at this. 25% sent SAT to be considered, 11% sent ACT. So just over 1/3 actually sent test scores. Okay? So this is a bit of a message. American is not as fixated on test scores. But then you go down to Amherst, a little higher. Okay? Amherst is one wonderful small school. 38% SAT, so 55%, more than half, sent test scores. So this is where you have to be really careful and weigh all the possibilities. Do your numbers stand up well enough so that you can apply without sending testing, even though 70% send testing? Ugh. This is hard. This is hard. But then there's some schools, like everyone would, you would agree with me, Boston University, selective school, not easy to get into. 37% sent testing. They're not liars. A lot of these schools are. Duke, 85% sent testing. But if you go on Duke's website, it tells you that they're test optional. No, you're not. If 85% sent test scores, you're not really test optional. So you'll get this lists about 500 colleges in the US to do, and you'll get this, and some of them you'll be amazed at, like at Georgetown. Georgetown is not test optional, you have to send your test scores. So guess what percentage sent test scores to Georgetown? 120. People send both SAT and ACT, the damn overachievers. Like, stop. Stop. What are you trying to stop? Just that. So you'll see some percentages that are over 100 with this to do. You'll also see test freeze. The entire University of California system is test free. The UC schools, the CSU schools, the state schools, San Diego State in that group. You can't even send them your scores. They've removed their code from SAT and ACT. You can't even send them. So they're test free. They're really truly test free with that. So you got to really look at this, and you probably, not probably, I think you probably will need to really consider which one you want to take, SAT or ACT, or whether you may want to take both. And it's very possible that you may want to take both. Nothing wrong with those that spending money and using your time with that. They are a little different to prep for, especially since ACT doesn't go digital until March. Okay? So that's a little bit different to do. But this is something to really seriously consider, that if you're going to take the tests, are you going to send them? And this will give you some sense. Admissions officers will give you some sense also. But don't forget, colleges are businesses. So they're not always working with your best interests at heart to do so. Now, some schools, God bless, the director of admissions at Hofstra University is as transparent as possible. She's wonderful. She's like, don't send that. Are you kidding me? Okay. She'll give you an honest answer. Not always the case. Because you'll get the, well, it depends, or you never know, or which, no offense for this cynicism on my part, but that might be some way of saying, we would like your money, we're not going to accept you. Which is a sad way to do it. Yes, sir.
What is the percentage of people picking one or the other?
Interesting, because it used to be in the East, it used to be almost all SAT and no one took the ACT. Then ACT started creeping in the 80s and 90s. And right now, it's about 55 SAT, 45 ACT. So it's pretty close. Pretty close. Well, the perception is the ACT is easier. And guess what? It is. It is easier. It is. But if you do the paper ACT, you have 60 more questions than you would have on the paper SAT. And 93 more questions than you have on the digital SAT. So yeah, it's easier, but it's harder because it's quicker. It's a speed test. It's really what it is. It's a speed test. It's just like, whoa, to get through it. So ACT is easier, but that's your trade-off with it. Right, so, why are they bringing back testing? Didn't we see that? I mean, did Georgetown, well, Georgetown never stopped doing testing. Did Harvard fall apart when people weren't sending testing? No. Did print? No, you know, Caltech was test-free for 4 years. You know, did they fall apart? No. But there's a couple of arguments that people have been making with this. The first is that it does add some credence, some authority to a candidate's application, because they were able to score well on a test where not everybody scores well. And the second is, colleges will mostly look in context, even with the SAT and the ACT. So if I'm at South Amboy High School in South Amboy, New Jersey, which is a pretty awful high school, because that's where I grew up, not a really good school, and I get a 1310, if I were at Lower Merion, my counselor would say, don't send that to Yale. But my counselor at South Amboy would say, send it to Yale, because that's the highest score in your class. So there's context here. That, I mean, the best way I could say this is that a 1310 is not always the 1310. It kind of depends on where it comes from to that. So that's one argument. Another argument is that there's so much grade inflation. There is. But I think this is the school bus calling the banana yellow here. Like, what was the percentage of students at Harvard last year that had A's? 71%. Okay, so let's just leave that for now. But the idea is in high school, what are the 3 grades in high school these days? A, okay, expected. B, disappointing. C, failure. Those are the only 3 grades these days, right? So these tests are flat, right? They don't rise or, well, in the middle, they stay pretty flat. But let me show you something. You're gonna die. Don't die. Please don't die. Let me show you something. Okay. In 2002, 134 students nationwide achieved a score of 36 on the ACT, which is the highest. And right before the pandemic hit, 5,579 got a 36. Oh yeah, there's no inflation there. 28.6 times the number of students received the composite score of 36 as compared to 2002. In that same period, the number of students taking the ACT did not even double. BFL, big fat liar. BFL. You could use another word for F there if you'd like. BFL. Bad. Okay? And where were these taken from? Directly from the ACT website. I didn't make these up. Now, look at this. This is nuts. Now, the numbers fell off a little bit because of the pandemic, because fewer students took it. So the next year it was about 4,100. But the number of students that took the ACT nearly fell in half. That didn't fall in half. That fell by 20%. So don't give me this, oh, they're stable. Yeah, they're stable for the people in the middle. They're not stable for people up here. So
There was a huge drop in 2009.
there was a drop in 2009. That's true.
4,600.
Oh, well, no, that's a mistake. That should be 428. Sorry.
Wow.
Oops. Thank you. That's gonna save me from embarrassment later. Thank you. That's true.
Christian,
So yeah, that's crazy, just crazy.
Christian,
Yeah, go ahead.
are you in full charge of which university will get which score?
You are completely in charge. You own your test scores. Even though College Board will tell you that they own your test scores, and ACT will tell you they own your test scores, you own your test scores. And they go nowhere unless you say they go somewhere. They cannot be put on a student's transcript. Because ACT and SAT are not required to graduate from high school. You don't have to, PSSAs are. Right, you have to take a, does anybody look at the PSSAs in college?
No.
And could we maybe have thought of a better name for the PISA? It's really, did somebody not look at that and like really? To do, so it's completely up to you, completely up to you. I know that. Well, back in 2005, my little boy took the SAT, did well. But at the time, I didn't realize this, Lower Merion put SAT and ACT scores on the transcript. So I went marching right up there and I said, FERPA, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, those scores belong to me, he's not 18, they belong to me, get them off the transcript. And the counselor was like, but he did great. Yeah, I suppose he didn't. They belong to him, well, me and him at the time, that's it. So I was instrumental in Lower Merion following the law. So the only things that can be legally on a public high school transcript are courses and grades, attendance, nobody puts that on, but it can be on there. Credits earned, requirements for graduation, and all the identifying information. No test scores, no activities. Conestoga puts activities on their transcript. Who checks that? I don't know, nobody, I don't know. You do, that's it. That other stuff, discipline record, nope. Nope, can't go on a transcript. Might have to be shared because of other laws or possibilities, can't go on a transcript. It's a whole lot about testing, I'm sorry, it's like too much to do. Questions, comments, concerns, yes, sir?
If you take multiple, do you also control which one will go?
Yes, you do, it's called score choice. Now, Georgetown will tell you that you must submit all of your test scores. And Georgetown conveniently convinced the SAT to abide by their policy. So if you try to say, don't send this one, College Board will say, no, you have to send all of them. But that's the only school, I believe it's the only school that does it that way. Georgetown is very conservative, it's a wonderful school. Wonderful school, but it's very conservative academically and how they run. And this is what cracks me up, it's a Catholic university, Georgetown. And the dean of admissions is named Charlie Deacon. It just makes me laugh, right? To do. Charlie's in his 80s. Oh no, he's been there forever. Yeah, he's been there. I think I'm old. I'm like, old Charlie to do. But yeah, score choice. So if you've taken the SAT 3 times, you can say send 1 and 2, don't send 3, or send 3 and not send. Yes, you can choose. You can choose. Other questions? SAT, ACT? We know the SAT is evil. Satan. Can anyone tell me what the street address of College Board is?
666.
666 Rosedale Road, Lawrence, not even in Princeton. They rent a post office box. So they have a Princeton mailbox. It's in Lawrenceville, a couple miles down the road. And they own all the numbers from 650 to 699. And 666 is one of their big palatial buildings.
I do have a question actually on testing.
Sure.
So the schools offer junior year, your upperclassmen, they can take the ACT or SAT. Do they offer both most schools, or is it just one or the other?
There aren't as many ACT test sites here as there are SAT.
Okay.
And that sort of goes back to history. with that. I know when I took the reins at Cherry Hill, I made us an ACT school.
Okay.
And we were the only one in South Jersey for years. So we were mobbed, we were mobbed for that. You can also, if you have a legitimate reason, what are the legitimate reasons? That your Sabbath is on a Saturday. That you cannot take a test on a Saturday, so your Seventh-day Adventist, your Orthodox Jewish, certain Muslim sects for that, you can take the test on Sunday. And then ACT is a little bit more open. I have a big basketball game on Saturday. Okay, you next Sunday. They're a little more open to that. Let me encourage you. If you can take the Sunday test, much smaller, much less anxiety. You're in there with, you're at Kohelet, for example, on a Sunday. You're maybe taking it with 40 other students in 3 classrooms, as opposed to 400 students in a giant high school. Take a look at the Sunday. It might help you. That. All right,
Another
Okay.
question.
Sure.
What about the PSC?
meaningless. The PSAT is meaningless. You take it for practice. It's coming up. It's like October 19th, I believe, is the test date to do. It's a practice test for the SAT. It prepares you to get a sense of what it's going to be like. It's also digital. As a junior, you can compete for the national merit standing, but there's no merit anymore. There are very few schools that give money. The only selective school that gives money to students in national merit is the University of Southern California. They'll give you half tuition. Okay, that's it. You'll get $2,000 from this one, maybe. So, and there's reasons for that. The slowing of funding for colleges, and also you saw what the ACT did with the elevation. There's too many people getting the high scores. Too many people. It used to be that the PSAT goes up to 1520. You get 760 in each one. And they use what's called a selection index. So you drop the 0, you double the reading, and you add the, so 76, 76, 76, 228 would be a perfect score. Okay? 15 years ago, to reach national merit, 212 was fine. Last year was 220 in Pennsylvania. Elevation. So take it seriously. Don't sweat it. Take it seriously. See how you do. You will get a printout that tells you did well on these, you did not so well on these. Use that. Take the feedback from it. The questions will be a little easier than they would be on the SAT, but they're the same type of questions. They're the same type of questions. But don't worry. So what happens if you're a really great test taker and you get sick on October 19th? Are you now out of the competition? No. Because you can take an SAT, and as long as you take the SAT by the end of your junior year, you can still compete for national merit. Yep, I know all the tricks from all that to do. All right, so I promised last time, for those of you who were here, that I would bring shirts from fake colleges, and I did. Look at these guys. This is so great. We've got Dreadnought University. Not the best, right? A dreadnought is actually a battleship, an old name for a British battleship. Dreadnought, fear nothing, do. The University of Pink, right? This all-purpose stage, right? And my favorite, North Pole University to do. So here's the deal. I'm gonna give you 3 choices. Gotta raise your hand, remember you gotta raise your hand. Whoever gets it right, can't win twice. I'm gonna read you 3 colleges, one of which is fake. You tell me which one is fake. Okay, ready? Alliance College, Defiance College, Transylvania University.
Alright.
Nope, Defiance is in Ohio, it's a real school. Yep, gotta raise your hand. Alliance used to be, but is no longer, it's a fake college. Transylvania University is in Kentucky. Small school in Lexington, Kentucky, seriously. Go ahead, take a shirt. And just to show, no offense to my two wonderful students here, how shallow teenagers can be. When the Twilight series came out, Pennsylvania experienced a significant increase in applicants.
Oh, wow. Really?
Bless my heart. Bless my heart. Okay, next one. Paul Quinn's College, Paul Smith College, the University of Paul Morris, which is fake. Fine, you can guess, come on, just guess. Paul Quinn's
University of Paul Morris?
is a fake. That's correct. Paul Quinn's College is up in the Adirondacks. Paul Smith College is a HBCU in Texas. So those are real schools. Hey. Got here, she pink. She's very pink. I've got Dreadnought and State still coming up here. Okay, ready? Wilson College. Warren Wilson College. Warren G. Harding College. Which is fake. Don't make me take these shirts home. Sorry? Wilson? Now, Wilson is a college in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. Okay. Warren Wilson or Warren G. Harding?
Warren Wilson.
Is a college in North Carolina.
Obvious one.
Please somebody raise your hand and take the next shirt. Please.
I forget the last one. The last one.
Warren G. Harding College. Yeah, he was not one of the more famous presidents, Warren G. Harding.
I. So stupid. That was like the obvious answer, so it must not be the answer.
Yeah, but I'm not, I had a French teacher, let me tell you, I had a French teacher once, and this guy was evil. Like, he would give us a quiz and it would have 10 items, all of them were C. And you know, you get to like number 4 and you're like, you know, and then 2 weeks later, he gives another quiz, and then the first 9 were C and the last one was A.
Oh my.
Evil, evil. Okay, last one, Dreadnought goes to this one. American University, the Slovak American College, the University of North America. Which one is fake? And we know American is not, right? Somebody wants that Dreadnought, I know it.
I do, I have no idea.
The second one?
Slovak American College is fake. The University of North America is in Texas, where else? Right? It's either in Texas or California, right? Oh, I love it, I love it, I love it, I love it. Oh, hold on, we get this before I forget.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, stop, please stop.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Here we go. All right. So ACT versus SAT. So we're done, right? We're like really done with SAT stuff. We're really done. Okay, great. All right. So let's go to support materials. So after the numbers, there are a number of things that some colleges, not all colleges, but some colleges would ask of their students. So now the students can get out of just the quantitative part of things and then show some of their personal skills. So the letters of recommendation would typically come next. Now I say typically because there are some situations where they don't. So let's go through this. Do all 2- and 4-year colleges require letters of recommendation? And the answer is nope. There's only one 2-year school of which I'm aware, Deep Springs, that requires recommendations. And they require at least 2. So you can do even more if you want. Do we know about Deep Springs? Are we aware of what Deep Springs is? What a place. what a place. The founder of Telluride established this school back about 100 years ago. The idea was, I'm gonna put this in an isolated area. I'm going to not let people even visit the school unless they're serious about attending. And that still holds 100 years later. I am going to have a small staff, but I'm going to rotate professors from all around the world to come into this school, because I'm going to give them the brightest and most interesting people in the world. So Deep Springs is a 2-year school. It has an enrollment of 32 people. It was all male up to 5 years ago. It is now co-ed, and it's almost even to that. The students are in, well, I can't tell you where, because it's in an unincorporated area south of Death Valley. There's no town. There's nothing there except Deep Springs. It's so far out that the students get their mail in Dyer, Nevada. 32 miles away is the nearest post office to do, okay? And these are extraordinary students. I mean, we're talking, if they send SATs, they're 1580s, 15, they're really, not that that makes you smart, but these are really extraordinary students. These are also learning for learning's sakes people. These are not one-hit wonders. These are students that are strong in all the core areas and want to learn everything about it. But the two really coolest things about Deep Springs are that it's free. No charge for anything. Room, board, tuition, everything, it's free. And I will tell you that after you finish Deep Springs, you pretty much go wherever you want. You know, I have had a student attend Deep Springs. I was dying to get there to see, and they wouldn't, even though I'm his counselor, you can't come. We're really that way. So where did he go after Deep Springs? Well, he traveled for a while, and then he went to Cornell in a PhD program. Skipped the undergraduates right for a PhD program to do it, okay? And even better, the students operate a 440-acre cattle and alfalfa ranch in return for their scholarships. And when you're ranked #1 in the first year class, you get to be the cowboy the next year, or cowgirl, which means you get to ride herd with the horses and the cattle. You're looking at me, no, this is a lie, right? So if you Google Deep Springs, not a lot, not a lot to do. So Deep Springs is only a 2-year school. If you go to Delco, if you go to Montco, if you go to CCP, you need a letter. Nope, don't need a letter to do. But there are a bunch of 4-year schools that don't want them either. Pitt, Penn State, Arizona, Westchester, they don't want them. Don't send them. Don't annoy them. Just don't send them to do. I think in some cases, schools that use Naviance is trained not to send them. So even if you designated the school, Naviance wouldn't, I don't know about SCORE, probably the same way. But Naviance will not send a letter to Westchester because they know not to send a letter to Westchester. It's not all schools will want them, okay? My guess is that some of you will apply to maybe 1 or 2 of those not want schools. Oh, by the way, if you choose to apply to Penn State's honors program, you will be required to send at least 2 letters of recommendation. Okay. So how many letters of recommendation are required? Well, almost every 4-year school that requires just 1 will ask that comes from the school counselor because they want sort of like a broader picture of things. Then some other colleges, kind of going up with selectivity, will require 1 or 2 teacher letters in addition. They'll be certain to check with each college as to the specific demands. Some schools will give you options. Now, this is a time where I'm going to tell you, using the options is not always a good idea. So if you apply to Swarthmore will tell you 2 required, 2 optional. You don't really need to send them extra letters, unless it's something really truly exceptional with that. But there are colleges that will accept letters outside the school, and I'll get to that in a minute as we go. Okay? So. Suppose you don't really know your counselor. Counselor has a large caseload, this could be an issue. It's not, I can tell you this from experience. I can tell you from the time I worked at Swarthmore. I can recognize when a counselor is overloaded. And when a counselor doesn't have time to get to know their students. There was a school, Menlo Atherton High School outside of San Francisco, one of the better school districts in California. Senior class of about 680 students. I would occasionally get letters of recommendation that said, Cigus, I wish I knew this kid, she seems great. Like, what are you gonna do? Well, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna diminish the importance of the counselor letter and elevate the importance of the teacher letters. They will never punish the students for that. Never. Never, never, never. To do. One of my favorite things, actually, one of the things I really miss with writing is writing letters, because I'm not in a school anymore. I love writing letters for my students.
The school is now suggest you to provide a brag sheet.
Oh, yeah, some schools do, yeah.
So they will be able to write a letter.
Right, some schools do, some schools do, that's true. That's true, my school did not, so, oh Lord, I had to actually get to know my students, what a concept. But that was, again, my favorite part of the job, to do that. Okay, so who's gonna write the letter, right? So first of all, teachers in your academic core subjects. The big five. I'm not talking basketball, the big five. English, math, science, social studies, world language. Now, if you are going to major in a VPA, visual or performing art, that will become a major for you. So if you've taken more than the usual theater or music or dance, and that's going to be your major, clearly I'm going to want a letter from somebody in that area. But you're also going to do something that the math majors are not going to do. You're going to audition. So that's a whole other thing that goes along with well to do. So the core subject areas. Teachers in the latter part of a student's high school. I would not take a letter from a 9th grade teacher unless there were really extenuating circumstances. Because if I sent 2 9th grade teacher letters, the college would be like, Cigus, what have you been doing for the last 2 years? It's like, not good, not good. 10th grades, fine for most schools. Some schools are not real keen with 10th grade. So we're looking mostly at 11th and 12th grade teachers. But I'm gonna caution you with 12th grade. Because if you use one of the early application plans, if you go early action or early decision, you may only have a teacher for 6 weeks. So be careful. Now, if this 12th grade teacher is somebody you had before in 10th grade, great. Absolutely great. So a 10 and 11, 2 11s, a 10 and a 12, an 11 and a 12, any combination like that would work. So you want teachers who can comment meaningfully on both the student as a human being and the student as an academic. I'm gonna get a lot of academic information from the teachers, because that's what their letter is mostly primed to do. So give me some sense of who that student is. What are they like among their peers? Is this the kind of student that you can trust with a leadership position? Is this the kind of student that you can rely on to get things done? Those kinds of things to do. And if the student gives permission and they've had some issues in high school, the counselor can address some of those. Because maybe I look at the transcript and it's like, you were absent for 3 months from school when you were a sophomore. I can help explain that. Only with the student and parents' permission. Because otherwise I am violating their civil rights. If you find out that your high school counselor is mentioning your bout with depression, first of all, punch them. Second of all, sue them. That's a serious violation of your privacy. No, no. Please don't worry about oh my God, my math teacher can't write. We don't care. It's content we're looking for. They can tell me what kind of student you are. They can tell me what kind of person you are. They don't have to use myriad plethoras. They don't have to be loquacious and sesquipedalian. Like, just tell me about the student to do. Sometimes they're the best letters. They're nice and simple. They say important things to do. Okay? If I'm gonna major in math, I probably should have a math teacher. If I'm gonna major in STEM, maybe I want a math teacher. So it's not the writing ability, not the writing ability. Okay, so will a college accept an extra support letter over and above? Generally, yes. Okay. But inundating the college admissions officers with additional letters is not likely to have a positive effect. This is one of the ways that you can tell whether a student has control issues. My world's record was 17 letters of recommendation. Students sent 17, I don't know 17 people that like me enough to write letters for me. But the world's record, I mean, when I was in admissions, we would keep track of this stuff. Kim Ball was a counselor at Johns Hopkins in the 1990s, 62 letters of recommendation for a student.
Was that student accepted?
No. I don't want somebody like that on my campus, and I'm gonna stand up to that and say, number one, how am I gonna teach them anything when they already clearly think they know everything? And number two, they're out of control as it is now. No. But one supplementary letter is usually accepted, not tolerated, okay, accepted by the colleges. Okay, now you may have to go beyond some of the platforms that you're using. So for instance, in Naviance, right? Naviance, if you apply to Penn, you can do 2 letters. There's one required and one optional. But Penn accepts supplementary letters. Can't go through Naviance because you're already filled. That would go through Common App. That would go through Coalition App. That would go through another source to do that. Okay? So then who should write it? Well, I'm thinking, you have 2 letters from the classroom teacher, but I don't know that you really need a 3rd teacher then, if that's the case. Youth group leaders, employers, athletic coaches, extracurricular advisors, clerics, familiar civic leaders. It's a different view of the applicant. This is a different you, because this is not you in school, typically. Now, suppose it is a teacher at your high school. And suppose you've been playing tennis for 4 years. And suppose this teacher is your coach and a mentor to you. And you really like each other. Yeah. But now they're not writing as a teacher. They're writing as a support person. My son asked a teacher at Lower Merion, who was at that time the advisor to the players group. That's one of the cults at Lower Merion, if you don't know. Players is a cult, rowing is a cult. What else is a cult? There's other things that are cults to do. So Ultimate is a cult. He was in that one also, by the way. So he wasn't writing as a teacher, he was writing as an advisor. And it was wonderful, wonderful. That. One of my favorite categories of letters from outsiders would be from families for whom I've babysat. Which you don't say babysat anymore. The phrase is childcare. I provided childcare. Okay, so how do you not love a letter like that? Maureen is the only student that can make my Susie smile at night. Oh, I mean, how great that you love that, to hear something like that. I would get a dozen, maybe 15 a year from families who would babysit. And then my last year was where one of the students asked the kids to write the letter. It was hilarious. Now don't forget, it's still paper. I was still doing paper time. 5-year-old, 8-year-old girls writing together 4 pages of loose leaf. Block lettering. We love Mary. Mary lets us stay up late. Don't tell my mom. It's hilarious. Mary got in, by the way. Mary was a pretty strong candidate, but that was like, phew, take you up and over with that. So, I love it. I love it. Okay. Who should not write a supplementary letter, a relative, your congressperson. Nothing wrong if you intern for your congressperson, but if you call Mary Gay. Let's say it's Mary Gay Scanlon. You call Mary Gay Scanlon, she'll write a letter for you. She'd be happy to write. You're a voter. Right? She'll write a letter for you. She'll give the phone to a staffer. Staffer will take basic information and I'll get a form letter. Don't do that. Don't do that. And please don't play the connections game. Oh my God. We can see right through this at the college level. So, you know, you want to go to Davidson, lovely school. Steph Curry went there, great school, small town, oh my God, very small. So you want to attend Davidson. It turns out that your mother's supervisor at work is a Davidson grad. Ask the mom supervisor, no, she doesn't know you. That's going to be abundantly clear that she doesn't know you. Now, again, different. You interned in the summer at your mom's job. You babysat, provided childcare at the company picnic. Different, right? But these connections letters, these are, they annoy colleges. They just annoy colleges. So 1 degree of separation. Student, writer. Not student parent, writer. Not student neighbor, writer. Okay? And if you have a connection that would be meaningful, don't be shy. You interned for Kamala Harris before she became a senator? Oh yeah, I'll hear that. Glad to hear that. To do, okay? You provided childcare for several members of the Philadelphia Phillies? Oh yeah, I'll hear that. Do. So help yourself in a situation, but avoid the connections game. Not gonna help you. Not gonna help you. What should you provide someone writing? If it's a teacher, your transcript, an updated resume if you have one, and a statement of intent. This is what I want to study, these kinds of things I may want to do. Parent may also provide some information. Now the writer's not going to just fold this in, because then I'm just going to get a rehashing of the application, right? But the writer does want to have some background in this, and that's wise to do that. Okay? They're due pretty much at the same time that the application is due, but most colleges, almost all colleges, will give teachers and counselors a grace period. Because they know that you have one application to take care of, they have 35 or 40. So they'll give them a little bit of extra time with that to do it. Okay? So questions about recommendations. What can I answer for you about recommendations? We're gonna do essay, we're gonna start essay tonight, and then maybe fold that over for next time too. Because I'm gonna save about the last 35 minutes for financial aid next week. We'll be graduating. We graduate next week. Questions about letters of recommendation? I had some outstanding ones. I had some that were completely goofy. I really didn't have many that were complete turnoffs, but some of them were just like I remember one from a physics teacher who it made some comments in the first paragraph, and I thought, wow, this is going to be a pretty cool letter. And then in the second paragraph, after the first month of school, I noted that Mary had changed. This young woman had previously been dynamic and would lead the discussion and would point out things that even I had missed. Well, by the 6th week or so, she was asking questions to which I knew she knew the answers. I couldn't figure it out. And then I realized she was doing it because her classmates were too shy to do it. You're in, how do you not love somebody that does that to do? But if you can get that level letter from a teacher or a counselor, you will help yourself. You will help yourself big time with that. You do. Okay, questions, letters of recommendation? Yes,
So for shy students, what tips do you have for them to kind of get familiar enough with the teacher? For them to be able to write a letter of recommendation?
I would say maybe interacting with projects or doing something after school with that. And if the teacher is the advisor to a club or a group that the student might want, a good way to connect with that as well. So let's write, oh yeah, go ahead.
So for like college information, like if I like ask for a teacher who's like subject, who's a core subject that's like unrelated to what I'm gonna go into, then it would be good.
If you're going to the Curtis Institute of Music, don't. Yeah, every place else, sure. Sure. You know, you don't want to major in something in high school. You certainly want to have preferences, but to have a variety, to be, broadly smart is a great way to approach college. Not to worry. Not to worry. I had a student named James Stromseth, who was from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And one of her letters of recommendation was from Walter Mondale, because she used to babysit his kids. And the other was from Hubert Humphrey's sister, because her father was the mayor of Minneapolis at the time. And they were both legit, because they actually knew her. And they knew her well. It was like, wow. This Jim's a pretty amazing young woman. She I don't know if she really needed that amount of support, but it's kind of cool to see that to do. Okay, let's write some essays. Letters of recommendation. You're out of here. Writing the college application essay. Now, probably gonna be a lot more questions here, and I get that, that's perfectly fine. These are your three adjectives. Anyone could write a great essay if you're these three. Genuine, fearless, transparent. Because if you are comfortable with who you are, or you're at least comfortable with your getting where you think you are, if you're genuine, you will be fearless, you won't be afraid to show who you are. And if you do, I can see that, you're transparent. Because that's really what, that's what I'm looking for, if I'm looking for an essay. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. Genuinely, fearlessly, transparently. When I say write your own essay, this is not just like no plagiarism, you know that, right? And let me tell you, the programs that high schools use to ferret out plagiarism are fairly efficient, but the ones that colleges use, you know, high schools have Turnitin now, or turnitin.org. Colleges like you're screwed now.com. You know, they'll catch everything. They'll catch everything to do. So that's not what I'm talking about here. You know not to plagiarize. You know not to plagiarize, right? So the best essay that you write is your essay. It doesn't matter what the theme is, as long as the topic is you. It really doesn't matter. And I don't want you to buy one of those books, 50 college essays ever written. It's nice to look at examples, but often they turn into models because you're not really sure what to do. So now you're writing a letter about the US space program because it talks about risk and exploration. Nice essay, well crafted, some big words in it, like refrigerator. You're like, good essay, right? I look at your transcript, you've never taken physics. I look at your activities. You're not in anything science related. I read 3 letters of recommendation, nobody mentioned your love of science. That essay did not help you. That essay hurted you. Yeah, you're not gonna do that to do. So look at the essays, I mean, maybe take a look at some of them, but please don't use them as models. Because then you're not gonna write your essay in a situation like that. Let me hear your unique voice. Writing takes time. no quick fix, they lather, rinse, repeat. That's what we do with the essays, you know, write, edit, repeat, write, edit, repeat, write, edit, repeat. You have all these topics from which you can choose. Common App, the last topic of 7 is topic of your choice. The 5th and last prompt on coalition is topic of your choice. Here's a piece of advice that I give all my students, which is gonna sound ridiculous. Don't even look at the prompts. Write your essay. I never once looked, in all the years of reading at Swarthmore, never once looked at what prompt the student chose. I don't care. I just want to read their essay. To do. And if you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, just check the last one, topic of your choice. And by the way, you don't need a title. Some of my students spend hours like, I gotta get the right title. No. I'm not asking for a title, just write. If you come up with a cool title, that's great, but please don't waste your time with that to do, right? Grace, skill, and insight, that's how you write. After being transparent, fearless, and genuine. I mean, I don't know. Why would you want to attend a school where you couldn't be yourself? If you're gonna talk about who you really are, you should be open to the school already for that. Don't write an English paper. Right, you're not defending a thesis, you're not supporting an argument, you're not drawing a conclusion, you're 17, you haven't concluded yet, right? Right, so you know, this cannot be the formulaic essay. You know what, got, you know that, first paragraph, here's my thesis. Next 3 paragraphs, here's what I used to defend it. 5th paragraph, here's my conclusion. No. You don't even need a formal introduction. A lot of students will jump right in. Fancy word for that, in medias res. Fancy words for that. But you can start here and go back. You can start here and go forward. You know, give me an anecdote at first. You know, turn me on to what's going to be coming. It doesn't have to be the normal English paper. It shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. Okay? They have to be personal essays. Clever, good. Cute, bad. Okay? Easy, clever, good, cute, bad. Okay? Avoid trite and overused topics. Now, I'm gonna assume that you probably heard this in the other direction. Don't talk about things that are controversial, things that are gonna stir up trouble. Don't write about race, don't write about politics. Don't write, well, I don't know about you, but I find those topics really interesting. I don't find how your team won the color war at camp all that interesting. I got lots of essays about camp. I got lots of essays about winning the game. I got I'm gonna write something like that. It has to be really outstanding because we get that all the time. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to move me. You can move me to tears. You can move me to laughter, you can move me to rage, but move me. Move my needle. Get me stirred up about something that you write. Okay? Empathy, not sympathy. Not a stop story. Right? Make me feel for you. Not necessarily with you. Let me feel for you with that. Okay? Your life lived. And here I'll give you a perfect example. Back in Cherry Hill, this is probably the last thing we can do. Young woman who always wanted to open her own health clinic and was applying to be a nurse. Okay? During the time that we were in Cherry Hill together, the drug Gardasil came on the market. Now, Gardasil is for the human papillomavirus. And it went up against significant opposition from people who felt, okay, you give this to a young woman, you make her safe, therefore she'll just have sex all the time. Okay, I don't get that argument either, right? You do? That was the argument coming on. So Gardasil was delayed for months, maybe even a year, before it was actually finally approved. Well, one of the conditions that Gardasil treats really well is cervical cancer. And during the time that Gardasil was being debated, her favorite aunt died of cervical cancer. And she wrote an essay. It was so angry. I still, like, I blanch, it was so dripping angry. But it was her, and it was perfect. NYU Nursing opened a clinic in East Stroudsburg. She reached her goals. And I know that essay helped, because Christy Matarazzo, Christy from NYU, called me and said, "Is this real?" I said, "Oh, yeah. I'll send you a picture of her aunt's funeral." It's like, oh, my. So that was real. That was like really. So I'm gonna tell you, take some chances with your essay. This is not the time to be cowardly. Unless you're applying to be in the Wizard of Oz, that's different. But you know, not only to be yourself, but to be your fierce self. Okay, so let's finish here because it's 8:30 already. Oh my God. If you can come back next week, we will finish up. We'll finish with essay. We'll talk about activities, talk about interview, maybe talk a little bit about other things in the process, and then we'll talk quite a bit about financial aid. Okay? All right, have a great week, everybody.
Thank you.